Hello, my beautiful friends. I am Laurel Bleadon-Maffei with Illuminating Souls, welcoming you to this episode of Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, a podcast designed to help you rest, relax, and fall asleep, all while deepening in your connection with your beautiful team of angels who love you so. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. It is a blessing to have you here. Allow me to introduce myself. I am an angelic practitioner, a spiritual teacher, and an encourager of souls. And I have the most wonderful job ever. I teach classes, and usually I have a different class starting about every 6 weeks or so. I do soul mentoring and also offer one-on-one angel sessions. And you can learn more at my website, illuminatingSouls.com, where you can also sign up for my mailing list, and then you'll be in the know of everything that I have going on. And then I also post regularly to my Facebook page. So lots of ways we can connect. But for now, the angels and I are here to help co-create a loving, sacred, soothing place where you can replenish. If it is your bedtime, where you can drift off to sleep. And if it is your waking hours, then we can keep you company as you go about your day. This podcast is an unlikely mashup of two of my favorite forms of self-care, connecting with the angels and listening to a sleep podcast, which I do every night as I get ready to drift off to sleep. Over the years, I have found there is something about a loving, soothing voice just rambling a little bit in my ears as I am disengaging from my waking consciousness that helps me slip off into the land of dreams. There are several different podcasts that I listen to, including this one, so I can provide you with my own testimonial that this podcast works. I rarely make it past 20 minutes before I'm asleep. One of the other podcasts, I guess you'd call it, that I've been listening to lately is the Calm app. I discovered that our health insurance company provides free subscription to the Calm app, and they have wonderful sleep broadcasts that I have been listening to as well. So hopefully, if sleep is your destination, if it is your bedtime, then we can help you with that. So each episode runs about an hour because that is my preferred length as a listener, because I don't want to feel like I have to hurry up and go to sleep. So I usually ramble here for about 15 or 20 minutes, and I bring in the angels for you, and then we move into story time. Story time can be just about anything. It might be stories from my own life. I might read to you from an old magazine or publication or an old cookbook. It's a lovely way that I get to keep you company for a little bit. And so if this is your bedtime, I invite you to cozy on up and snuggle on in whatever way works best for you. So if you are a regular listener, well, first off, thank you. Thank you so much. What a blessing to get to spend this time with you. And you may have noticed I have not been publishing new content regularly lately. You know, with everything that is happening in the greater world, I find that I have less energy to create right now. It's not that I don't love this podcast and that I don't see a future for it. I really do. And I know there will come a time and space when I'm back in full force in creating content. But I don't know about how you are navigating the world right now, but I am having to be very intentional in how I'm regulating myself, my energy, my emotional body, my consciousness, all of the above. So the first thing I can acknowledge is I am so lucky to do the work that I do because it always fills my cup. So last weekend I had a rough weekend because of the news, which I will not talk about here. And I was so excited for Monday to come around because I knew I was going to start early Monday morning with my first mentoring session. And then I was going to facilitate my Joy in Business group. And then I was going to have other mentoring sessions. And by the time that was done, I would have been rebooted, which is indeed what happened. So I'm very fortunate to have work that replenishes me. But what I'm finding is when I'm not plugged in with the angels in work mode, which is not really like work at all, it is sanctuary, that as Laurel, I have much less energy. Much less, my mother would have said, oomph. I don't have much oomph today. That would be something my mom would say. And so I look forward to those quiet moments when I can just get onto our couch and crochet. Crochet has absolutely been medicine for me lately because there's something about the beauty of the yarn and the rhythm of the needle and creating something tangible that is very comforting to me right now. And I have been binge watching the series Suits, which I think everybody but me has seen already. And my husband doesn't care for it, so I have to watch it when he's at work. So I look forward to when my day is over and I might have an hour or so before my husband comes home. So I quickly go crochet and watch an episode of Suits. And it helps me disconnect from this moment on the timeline, which is kind of shaky. So whatever you're doing to maintain your balance right now, I honor you. We are beautiful, sensitive, heartfelt human beings who are also divine in nature. And right now the collective is going through the ringer. And if you're anything like me, you care deeply about what is transpiring, and yet we don't really have much influence over all that is, except if we can look within our own sphere of influence, because we always have a sphere of influence. So for me, I dive into my yarn stash and I pick some beautiful yarn and I start making a blanket for somebody, or prayer shawls. I am going to try making a sweater soon, and I am going to try knitting a sweater soon. And then I try to be extra kind to people when I'm out in the world. It's not much, but it's what I can do. So I want you to know how grateful I am to have this time with you. And I feel like I should apologize for not creating more episodes for you, but I know you'll understand. The good news is I have hundreds of episodes in the archive, so there's plenty of content here for you. But I'm here now, and you are too, and that's what matters. So how would it be if I call the angels in to be with us? They're already here, but I love sharing the ritual with you. So I'm going to invite you to take a nice deep breath in and just release, allowing yourself to release anything that came before this moment. And breathing again. And beautiful angels on high, we invite you to join us here, and we ask that you infuse this broadcast with waves of love and goodness and light, infusing this broadcast with kindness, compassion, sacred space, so that each one of our beloveds feels your presence and knows what a blessing they are here on this planet. Truly, from my heart to yours, I welcome you here. So angels, I ask that you clear and balance our energy fields, clearing from us anything that is not ours, helping us ascend our energy so that we are more resilient, resourceful, replenished, connected, and moving forward in ways that are in alignment with our authentic purpose, our authentic path, supporting us as we walk with others who share our core values, who share our light, who are deeply devoted and connected to humanity, to ascension, to evolution of consciousness. It is so good to be together in this moment with you as we awaken and energize and claim our right to seed for brighter tomorrows. So just take another deep breath in, just breathing in the love of the divine and just releasing. And right now the angels are filling the space you are in with a beautiful, soft pink light that is filled with love that has been co-created just for you. It has been attuned to your vibration so that you can receive. That the angels know what is transpiring in your life, in your world right now. And they are sending you this energetic sustenance so that you can refill your tank, so that you can come into alignment with your heartfelt purpose and with the goodness that is here for you. You know, no one else gets to determine your place in the world. You are a bright, beautiful soul. And you've already gone through so much in your life, and you are worthy of your seat at the table. That this world is better because you are here. That there are molecules of love, of kindness, of wisdom, of laughter, of creativity, and so much more that you bring into this world that makes this world brighter. And just because there are those who cannot see you this way does not mean that what I am saying is untrue. So I ask the angels to infuse this message with so much love for you so you can come into the fullness of all that you are. There's a beautiful affirmation that the angels and I use when I am teaching, especially about authentic empowerment. And the affirmation says, I now call forward all that I am. And there's such power to that. I now call forward all that I am. I call forward the wisdom of my spirit. I call forward the light of my divine self. I call forward my wisdom body. I call forward my gifts and abilities. I activate my magic in ways that are in alignment with my joy, with making wonderful contributions to our shared experiences here on earth. I now call forward all that I am in service to the highest and best good. And as you breathe these statements in, just feel your beingness opening to meet them. Every time I do that kind of experience with the angels, I sit up a little bit taller in my chair. And it helps me to remember who I am. You know, we all forget who we are sometimes. We all feel like we fall into holes, that we don't have any power. You know, it's not uncommon to feel those things. But it also doesn't mean that they're true. One of the things I love so much about the work that I get to do is I get to see people through the eyes of the divine. So I see your beauty, and I see your potential, and I see your big, gorgeous heart. I see the preciousness of all that you are, and it's one of the blessings that comes along with the gifts that I embody. So it's why I keep showing up here, because I hope if I say this enough, you'll believe me, and you'll feel it for yourself as well. I think I've shared this with you before, but there is a beautiful, sweet song written by David Wilcox. He is a singer-songwriter. It's a very simple song. It says this: "If I had a spell of magic, I would make this enchantment for you. A beautiful heart-shaped medallion with a window that you could look through, so that when all the mirrors are angry with your faults, and all you must do, you could peek through that heart-shaped medallion and see you from my point of view." Isn't that beautiful? I used to listen to that song all the time when I was in the corporate world and praying for the wisdom and the insight of how I would be able to leave my corporate job and do this work. And I would just cry every time I heard it because, oh, how I needed that heart-shaped medallion because my mirrors were always angry, just like it says in the song. And now I get to hold up the heart-shaped medallion for others like I do for you. So I can help you remember who you are. I can help remind you of your innate preciousness and that you are here on purpose and you are a gift in this world, and I am grateful for you. So I invite you to take a nice deep breath in, just breathing in the coziness and the love of your angels. And if you are preparing for bed, I invite you to cozy on up and snuggle on in. And drift off whenever you are ready. And if it is your waking hours, then I just invite you to get centered and breathe. And if you are operating heavy machinery, please focus upon the task at hand. And the angels and I will keep you company as we move on into story time. All right, for story time, I have another community cookbook. I really had wanted to record a different kind of episode, but I needed to do something that felt easy and comforting for me. So I'm hoping it's going to feel comforting for you as well. So this community cookbook I just recently purchased off of eBay. It is a collection of tested recipes contributed by the members and friends of the White Rock Community. It's the Women's Society of Christian Service of White Rock Methodist Church in Dallas, Texas. And it was compiled and printed in 1946. So if you're new to the world of community cookbooks, they are a form of recipe books that I love. So they've been publishing them for decades now, well over 100 years. And wherever there were groups of women, whether it was a church group, a temple sisterhood, a PTA, the firemen's wives, wherever there were groups of women, quite often they would create this compilation of their recipes. This was before the internet, before you could just take your phone out and pull up a macaroni and cheese recipe. This was back in the day when women did most of the cooking, and they were preparing 3 meals a day plus snacks. They weren't doing drive-thrus or prepared foods from the grocery store. They were cooking all the time, and when they weren't cooking, they were doing laundry and mending and sewing, and they really were in the domestic world. But this is in 1946, so this would be right around the end of World War II, and one of the significant things that was happening, in addition to it being World War II, which is its own whole history, is that women had started going into the workplace because the men were off fighting the war, and they needed people working in the factories and taking on other jobs. So women had started working outside of the home, and so how they prepared foods needed to change. So canned food, frozen food, things that were convenient, really became immeasurably valuable to the lives of these women. So they would bring all of their recipes together, and usually there was 1 or 2 women who probably overcommitted all the time to doing much more than their share of the work, because that exists in every group, right? And they would organize and put together this community cookbook. They would get advertisers, and then the women would go out and sell the cookbook as a fundraiser. So I absolutely love this niche, because more often than not, the recipes are simple. They remind me of my flavor profiles growing up. And usually there are fewer steps than more. It's not like reading a Gordon Ramsay cookbook where I would get intimidated right away. This is, take a can of that, a box of that, mix it together. The other thing is they assume you have some ability to cook, so they don't always include all the steps because they figure you know. And so I haven't really looked through this one yet. So let's see what the women of White Rock Methodist Church in Dallas, Texas in 1946 have in store for us. Okay, we're going to start off with provisions for 40 people, because if you're running a church group, a temple sisterhood, or another community society where people are gathering, in all likelihood you are going to have to at some point cook a community meal. So this is what they're saying you would need for 40 people. 1 pound of coffee and 10 quarts of water, 1 quart of cream and 1 pound of sugar. That would be for the coffee. 2 gallons of soup. They don't tell you what kind. 1 peck of potatoes. I don't know what a peck is, but I'm assuming it's a bushel of some sort. 2 quarts of gravy or sauce. 1 quart of French dressing. 2 dozen lemons, 2 pounds of sugar, and 2 gallons of water, which will make lemonade. 12 pounds of chicken salad. Allow a 1/4 pound dressed chicken to each person. 2 pounds of tuna salad or salmon salad. 8 quarts of potato salad using 1 pack of potatoes. 3 pounds of potato chips. 20 pounds of chicken or turkey dressed. 1 10-pound can of peas. 5 pounds of macaroni. 2 pounds of salted peanuts. 1/2 gallon of medium-sized olives. 1 loaf of sandwich bread will make 24 sandwiches. 1 pound of butter will spread 3 loaves of bread. 1 quart sandwich filling will spread 1 loaf of bread. I think that must be mayonnaise. 2 gallons of ice cream will serve roughly 40 people liberally. 1 round cake, 10 inches in diameter, will serve 12 people. So I'm just wondering, do you see any issues here? Well, for me, I am reminded of how much more we eat now. 3 pounds of potato chips for 40 people. Have you been to a Super Bowl party? 3 pounds of chips is not enough. Also, 2 gallons of ice cream for 40 people. Not enough. As well as a 10-inch cake for 12 people. So that must be that 28 people are not going to get to have cake. So I don't know. Definitely we have different portion sizes now. But we'll move on. So these are some interesting sandwich spreads. So we have lemon cheese. So you take half to a third of a cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of butter. You juice and grate the rind of 1 lemon and 1 egg. So combine all ingredients and cook over low flame until thickened, stirring constantly, and then cool and spread or pour over slices or cubes of American cheese. Now I don't know how excited I am about lemon curd and American cheese, but I do like lemon curd, and American cheese is fine, but I don't know that I would put them together. Here's another interesting combination: peanut butter and orange sandwich filling. So it's a 1/4 cup of peanut butter, 1/6 of a cup of orange juice, which is just a small, tiny amount of orange juice, half a teaspoon of grated orange rind, and a pinch of salt, and a pinch of powdered mace. So mix together in order named and store in refrigerator. Good on any type of cracker. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if orange peanut butter sounds good to me. Okay, we're now going to move into the bread section. Okay, here's a little factoid. The ancient Egyptians kneaded their bread dough with their feet, according to the Encyclopedia Britannica. The same custom persisted in Scotland for many years. I've never heard that before. Okay. So here's a recipe that's interesting. All bran refrigerator rolls. So you take half a cup of shortening. It looks like it says 3/8 cup of sugar, so just under a half a cup. A half a cup of all bran, 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, half a cup of boiling water, 1 egg, 1 yeast cake, and 3 1/4 cup of flour. So what's interesting is they're really featuring the bran, but there's only half a cup of bran in these refrigerator rolls. I will say we are a fan of bran in our house. We have reached the age stage where we appreciate bran cereal. Our favorite is, well, my favorite is the high fiber cereal. That's the name. Very descriptive. High fiber cereal from Trader Joe's. You guys know how much I love Trader Joe's. And I usually mix it up with a few Cheerios or some Raisin Bran. I never can just have one kind of cereal. I have to sort of make a mixture, a blend of different cereals, because then I get different textures. And each spoonful is kind of like a treasure hunt. Sometimes I'll put blueberries in there. Sometimes I'll put a banana in there. And whereas most people have cereal for breakfast, I might have it for dinner because I eat differently. Because I don't know if you know this or not, but I've had bariatric surgery. I don't know, I'm laughing at that, but I've had bariatric surgery, so my tummy is a little bit different. So I cannot eat a lot of food at night. So usually my heaviest meal, and heavy being relative, but my most substantial meal is usually at lunch. And then I have a light dinner. and usually I have a big smoothie for breakfast in the morning. I don't know why. I thought you needed to know all of that. So I probably would not be making the all-bran refrigerator rolls, but I do appreciate the inclusion of bran in two things. And since we did have the bran bread, then I'm going to have to now tell you about the Wheaties muffins. Yes, indeed, they have Wheaties muffins here. So we're going to have 1 cup of sifted flour, 4 tablespoons of sugar, half a teaspoon of salt, 3 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 egg, and half a cup of milk, 4 tablespoons of melted shortening, and 2 cups of Wheaties. I'm sure those were delicious. You've got sugar, milk, Wheaties, shortening, which I'm sure they're thinking it's Crisco. I would use butter, though, because, hey, I love some good butter. I love the name of this one. Mother Peterson's Donuts. Like, how well loved was Mother Peterson that the whole family just called them Mother Peterson's Donuts. Like, she got her donuts named after her. I bet she was an amazing cook. So here's Mother Peterson's Donuts, which I'm sure are phenomenal. 1 cup of sugar, 4 tablespoons of melted butter, 2 eggs, 1 cup of sour milk, 1 teaspoon of soda, 1 teaspoon baking powder or 2 teaspoons baking powder with sweet milk, 1 teaspoon salt, 1 teaspoon vanilla, 1 teaspoon nutmeg, and 4 cups of flour. Mix the ingredients and work out on a board carefully. Soft batter makes better donuts. Roll 1/4 inch thick, cut with donut cutter, makes 3 dozen. Now notice how nowhere in this recipe does it say heat the oil, drop them in the oil for a certain amount of time, because they're assuming you know that. Donuts infer they are fried, so they don't even have to put that in the recipe. Because if you were a capable housewife of 1946, you would know that. And this was submitted by Mrs. H.B. Peterson, so I bet Mother Peterson was her mother-in-law. I don't know why this story delights me. Somewhere there was a Mother Peterson who was known for her donuts, and her daughter-in-law made them just as Mother Peterson had taught her. Can you just see it now? I don't know. Anyways, I'm just delighting myself here with this idea. Okay, let's see what else I can find. There's lots of griddle cakes, a lot of different waffles. I've shared with you before, my mother loved her blueberry waffle from Walker Brother Pancakes. I'm not much of a waffle person myself. I mean, if you served me waffles, I would gladly have it. But I don't own a waffle maker. I know that chaffles were a thing. Do you remember the chaffle kick? That was where you got one of those little waffle makers. They were like $10 or something from Best Buy or Amazon. And the chaffle, which was big during the keto time, usually involved cheese and I don't know if it had almond flour or something else in it. And it made some sort of waffle. I never did succumb to that myself. But I would only want a waffle if it involved powdered sugar and syrup because, right, that's the whole point of having a waffle. Because the little indentations in the waffle are vessels, tiny little vessels for syrup, butter, and powdered sugar, right? I mean, what's the point otherwise? Just have a pancake, which is my breakfast philosophy. Okay, there are quite a number of banana bread recipes. I am really wanting a good banana bread recipe, but I don't use sugar, and I'm lazy. I just like want the bananas to assemble themselves into a lovely loaf. I don't even think I have a loaf bran. Well, here's one that involves bran. So hold on. This might be the intersection of two things that I appreciate. Banana bread, and it involves bran. Okay, I already said that, but I'm so excited I had to say it twice. So we've got half a cup of shortening. Again, I would use butter. Half a cup of sugar, so not too much sugar. 1 egg well beaten. 1 cup of bran, breakfast bran flakes. Then 1.5 cups of banana mashed. I would imagine that's about 2 to 3 bananas. 2 tablespoons of water, 1.25 cup of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of soda, and half a cup of nuts. So you cream the shortening and sugar, add the egg and remaining ingredients and mix well. Put in a loaf pan and let it stand 30 minutes, then bake in a slow oven. This is from Mrs. Fred Phillip. So again, back in 1946, they did not have to necessarily give us the temperature at which something needed to be baked or for how long, because it's just assumed you would know. I think a slow oven is probably 325 to 350, probably 325. And I would imagine you're baking it for about 40 minutes. But what do I know? Don't take my word for it. Just look at another banana bread recipe and see what they say. Oh, here's one. They're saying this is a different recipe and they want you to make it in a moderate oven of 350 degrees. So if our bran banana bread recipe is in a slow oven, then I go back to my 325. Okay, let's see what else we can find. All right, there are quite a few cornbread recipes, which I'm going to skip over, but I do love cornbread. And I should also say this particular community cookbook is interspersed with ads. So there's an ad here. One is the Clover Farm Store, which is at 9016 Garland Road. And then there's something called Lala's, distinctive wearing apparel for ladies and men. Just as an aside, this has nothing to do with the cookbook, but I have been watching The Traitors with Alan Cumming, who I love. I love him. He did a PBS special, like an on-the-road special with Miriam Margolyes. Miriam Margolyes. That's it, I think. Sorry, I had to say it out loud a couple times until it sounded right. And he has the most adorable dog named Lala. So I'm not getting a dog or a cat, but I thought if I did, maybe I could name it Lala, because I just think that's adorable. So this is an apparel store named Lala, which, I don't know, might not mean anything to you, but this is my consciousness stringing more than one thought together. Really enjoying The Traitors, by the way, because I love Alan Cumming. What is not to love about this man? And if you watch his On the Road with Miriam Margolyes, what a nice man. Like, what a nice person. And funny. So, okay, but back to our 1946 housewives. How about some orange bread? Yeah, okay, well, you know what? This is not sounding good to me. But okay, but I can't tease you like that, right? So let me pick one of these orange bread recipes. So 2 tablespoons of shortening. Otherwise, you're going to have some dry orange bread. 2 tablespoons of shortening, 1 cup of honey, 1 egg, 1.5 tablespoons of grated orange rind, 3/4 of a cup of orange juice, 2.5 cups of flour, 2.5 tablespoons of baking powder, 1.5 teaspoons of soda, half a teaspoon of salt, and 3/4 of a cup of chopped nuts. I'm sure that would be delightful. Okay, we are now into the cake section. My favorite. I love cake. I don't eat it anymore, but I enjoy thinking about cake and reading cake recipes. So there are applesauce cake recipes, which sound good. Banana cake. Who doesn't love a good banana cake? This one caught my attention, blackberry cake. But then I realized it's not fresh blackberries, which I'm sure would have been very difficult to get other than probably a few weeks over the summer back in 1946. But this one has 1.5 cups of sugar, 3/4 of a cup of shortening, 1 cup buttermilk, 1 teaspoon of soda dissolved in the buttermilk, 1 teaspoon each of cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves. So it's going to have that kind of spicy flavor to it. 3 1/4 cups of flour, 1 cup of raisins, 1 cup of nuts, 1 1/2 cups of blackberry jam or jelly, and 3 well-beaten eggs. So I went to this because what just came into season here in California in February is Driscoll's Sweetest Batch Blackberries, which I wait all year for because they are so delicious. And I have 2 containers of them in my refrigerator that this just reminded me I need to go wash and dry so I can put them in the freezer, because what I do when they're in season is when I go to the market, I always buy 2 more packages and then I wash them and freeze them so that for the coming months I can have them in my smoothie. So if you see that, it has to be the Sweetest Batch from Driscoll's. It's a special variety. They're rather expensive, but they're worth it if you have that sort of bandwidth in your budget. Delicious. And I would not waste them on a cake. So, okay, let's see what else we can find. I love the name of this one. This is your busy day cake. I wonder what makes it good for a busy day. So we're going to take 1 2/3 cups of cake flour, 1 cup of sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 2 1/2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/3 of a cup of shortening, part butter, 2/3 cup of milk at room temperature, 1 egg, and 1 teaspoon of flavoring. So I wonder if that would be vanilla or almond extract or something. So we're going to sift the flour and measure, re-sift. So you're doing all the things. I don't know what makes it quick. And then there's also a broiled Jiffy icing. I'll place the cake under the broiler for a few minutes until the icing bubbles and browns. Okay. Listen, any kind of cake as a kid I would have been happy with. I don't care how long it took you to make, whether it was 5 minutes or 5 hours. I would have been happy with any kind of cake. So, busy day cake, broiled icing, I'm in. There is a coconut cake here, and just a little coconut cake memory that just came back to me. My grandmother, who I called Nani, loved coconut cake, and on her birthday, my mom or her sister would sometimes make her a coconut cake. So let me read you this recipe in honor of my grandmother, Stella. So 2 1/2 cups of sugar, 2/3 of a cup of shortening, 4 egg yolks, 3 cups of cake flour, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 cup of milk, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 3 teaspoons of baking powder, 4 stiffly beaten egg whites. So the way my mom would make it, as I recall, is it usually was 2 cake pans. And she wasn't fancy, like she didn't cut the layers in half or something. So you'd have 2 different layers. And it was a white frosting. And then she would put the shredded coconut all over it. I do seem to recall there may have been a maraschino cherry involved somewhere. I don't know. But apparently that was my grandmother's favorite cake. And you know what's so interesting about that is these are just the sweetest, most intimate little memories that we don't even remember that we have until we trip over them. Like on an average Friday afternoon, flipping through an old church cookbook. I hadn't thought about that cake in years. Isn't that lovely? Our consciousness is so fascinating. The way there are just little tidbits of sweetness just waiting to be uncovered. So that's a lovely memory. So we're clearly in the dessert section, and I don't know where it is in this cookbook, but since I don't know that I'm going to come across it while I'm recording this episode, I have to tell you about the saddest recipe I saw in here. It was a dietetic recipe, right? Let's all just groan together and get it out of the way. No wonder so many of us had food issues. It basically involved sugar-free lemon jello, sugar-free lime jello, shredded carrots, chopped up celery, and a can of crushed pineapple. Like, this is my childhood in a snapshot. Other people are eating coconut cake, and someone's like, Laurel, just have the diet jello. Nobody actually ever really said that to me, but that's how it has lived in my energy field, that other people got to have delicious desserts, and I had things that were not really dessert, but they were trying to trick me into them being dessert, like a black cherry Shasta pop. We called soda pop back then, so having a pop. I would just have a pop, a sugar-free pop. Well, I don't know that you have ever been satisfied with a sugar-free soda and said, you know what, I really don't need that chocolate bar. Nah, I don't need it. Just give me another tab, a Fresca, and I'll be fine. Okay, but let's go back to my happy place, which is cake recipes. There is a recipe here called fruit cake with gumdrops. So I have a question for you. As a kid, was there candy that you did not like, but you ate it anyways because it was candy and it was the only candy that was available to you? I felt that way about a couple of things, and one of them were the spice gumdrops. Not the ones that tasted like cherry and orange. I wasn't really a jelly candy person, but I wasn't going to pass them up if you offered them to me. But there were these kind of spiced gumdrops. And whenever they would make an appearance, I would put them in my mouth and be terribly disappointed. I don't even know what they were spiced with. I think there might be a mint one, maybe there was a clove one, I don't know. All I knew was I did not enjoy them. And I was a child before the age of gummy bears. So the kind of jelly candies that we had were not ones that I enjoyed. We had jujubes, which basically took your teeth out. We had the gumdrops, the chuckles. Do you guys remember the chuckles? Those big rectangular jelly candies. I would eat them if I got them, but I never really enjoyed them. I was never like, I'm so excited I have a thing of chuckles. No, but it was sugar, so I was going to, of course, have it, even if I didn't enjoy it. So apparently you can make a fruit cake with gumdrops, but I'm never going to make those because I never need to eat another gumdrop in my life, which is fine with me. Okay, I have a good one here for you. A maraschino cake. So, if you've listened at all, as a child, my philosophy was if a maraschino cherry was involved, it was going to be a good dessert. Because maraschino cherries were the gateways to delight. Shirley Temple with the maraschino cherry, delicious. Ice cream sundae with a maraschino cherry on top, amazing. So, to me, maraschino cherries were like calling cards for deliciousness as a child. It never occurred to me that you could just eat maraschino cherries on their own because, quite frankly, they weren't delicious enough just to binge on. But usually, they were utilized to help announce some sort of delicious concoction that was about to take place. So this is a whole cake, a maraschino cake Let's see what's in it. We've got 2 cups of flour, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1 1/4 cups of sugar, 4 egg whites, a 3-ounce jar of maraschino cherries, 3 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 1/2 cups of shortening, and 3/4 cup of liquid. You're going to use the juice from the bottle of cherries used and add milk to make 3/4 of a cup. And then 1/2 cup of nuts dredged in 2 tablespoons of flour. So you cream the shortening and sugar, sift the flour, measure, add salt, baking powder, and sift twice more. Never have I sifted. I know you're supposed to. I mean, I sifted in home ec back in, I don't know, late 60s, early 70s, but I have not sifted since then. I don't know why that's important. Then add alternately with the liquid. Blend in cherries cut in quarters. Reserve a few to decorate the top because, again, we must announce to the world that deliciousness lies herein. And add nuts. Fold in stiffly beaten egg whites. Bake in 2 layers at 375 degrees for 25 minutes and frost. As a child, I would have been delighted by that. Now, one of my bones of contention about desserts is when you have spicy dessert. I'm okay with gingerbread. That makes sense to me. But for instance, this is called meringue spice cake. So it does involve brown sugar and egg yolks, just like you would expect. And then it's flavored with cinnamon and cloves, which I would not be interested in. That wouldn't be my thing. Okay, and I know this is a popular one, but I've never had it. Tomato soup cake. Have you ever had tomato soup cake? I've heard of it. I've never had it, though. But this has 1 cup of sugar, 1/3 cup of butter, 1 egg, 1 1/2 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of soda, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of cloves, 1 teaspoon of nutmeg. So again, spicy cake. 1 can of tomato soup, 1 1/2 cups of pecans, and 1 1/2 cups of raisins. Yeah, nothing about that sounds good to me, but it may be a flavor profile you're familiar with from your childhood. And since I did tell you about the gumdrop cake, I should also tell you there are gumdrop cookies, which involve 2 tablespoons of water, 4 eggs, 1 cup of gumdrops cut into small pieces, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 2 cups of brown sugar, 2 cups of flour, and 3/4 cup of nut meats chopped fine. Again, not so excited about that. And then in terms of ads, we have an ad for Harry Bogue Motors, Bogue. So you can own a new Studebaker. Woo, Studebaker. If you want the first new model, riding comfort, economy, and style, today, tomorrow, and always. There's also a jeweler, J.E. Powdrill Jeweler, just in case you've got a watch that needs to be corrected. In terms of other cookies, we've got oatmeal cookies, molasses crinkies or crunchies, Norwegian crowns. I don't know what that is, but the ingredients make it sound good. It does have 2 hard-cooked egg yolks, so that doesn't sound so great. But it does involve almond extract, butter, and sugar, and flour. So that sounds kind of good. And you know what? Mother Peterson has another recipe in here. Mother Peterson's Scotch cookies. Oh, these are going to be good. You know these are going to be good, right? Because Mother Peterson did not mess around when it came to baking for her family. So it's going to take 1 cup of butter, 2 cups of sugar, 1/2 cup of molasses, 2 eggs beaten, 1 tablespoon of vanilla, 1 tablespoon of soda, 2 tablespoons of hot water, and 5.5 cups of flour. So mix in the order given. Dissolve the soda in hot water, make into rolls, chill in the refrigerator overnight or for several hours. Slice and bake at 375 degrees. Makes 7 dozen. Add nuts if you like. Again, from Mother Peterson's daughter-in-law, I'm assuming. Like, you wanted to have Sunday dinner with Mother Peterson, right? It was going to involve a lot of butter and potatoes and deliciousness. I don't know why this delights me so much to have this imagined relationship with Mother Peterson. I hope she was a nice lady. But she probably was one heck of a baker, huh? So this sounds like that's a shortbread kind of thing. I love shortbread. Oh, is anything better than shortbread? I'm just weird. I can just get excited about food I'm never going to eat. I just love the idea of it. But I guess it's no different than somebody watching sports that they're never going to play. Right? How many people watch football and they're never going to play football? So I read cookbooks and get excited about recipes and food I'm never going to eat or make. We are all a little bit voyeuristic, I guess. All right, so there are other sections. We're in a pudding section for bread pudding. I don't know if they have rice pudding. I have been craving rice pudding like crazy. And technically I could make it. But I don't want to. What I'm actually craving is this rice pudding this grocery store in Santa Cruz sells, called Staff of Life is the grocery store in Santa Cruz, or Santa Cruz. I don't know why I have to pronounce the T. So they make this delicious rice pudding, and Wes and I go down to Santa Cruz once or twice a year when he has meetings there. And I always have to go to Staff of Life and get some of this rice pudding, which ordinarily is okay because I need it to be all the way in Santa Cruz so I'm not eating it every day. But I have been craving rice pudding because the world is crazy right now. And so I have required emergency stores of things like pie and blue box mac and cheese and, because I'm going to need stuff. And I've really been craving this rice pudding. But I have thankfully talked myself out of driving 2 hours to Santa Cruz for the purposes of securing rice pudding. Although I have discovered the most amazing pie, which is made up in Sacramento, which is, a little over an hour away from us. And it had been sold in a local grocery store that's about half an hour from us. And so I had been very secure in this knowledge that I could just go to that supermarket when I was in the area and pick up some of this most amazing pie I've ever had. But wouldn't you know, that chain of supermarkets has stopped carrying the fruit variety of the pies, which is the one that I loved the most because it doesn't have a ton of sugar in it. And so I have secured some emergency pie, which is in our chest freezer in our garage. So if something crazy happens in the world, I said to Wes, we have emergency pie. And I said to him, at some point, I will probably have to drive to Sacramento for pie. And I don't know at what point that will become my reality, but I can see it in my future because I might need more emergency pie depending on what is happening in the world. I also have emergency yarn. I have about 4 different kinds of rainbow colored yarn that I could make stuff with. So I have emergency yarn. I have emergency pie. I have emergency blue box mac and cheese. Like, I'm ready for whatever's coming. So I don't know what is in your emergency rations. I know normally people talk about things like toilet paper, which we have. You know, they talk about practical things, but I'm not a practical girl. I talk to angels. So my list of things that I need might differ from most, shall we say, normal people. So if you have your own weird emergency supply list, just know I see you. I understand you. And I wish that you have all that you need of your emergency supplies. Well, this feels like this is a good place to complete this particular episode, to bring it to its completion for now. I'm only on page 107 of this cookbook, and I have about, a lot of other cookbooks I can read to you and other stuff. So I will endeavor to come back to this microphone sooner rather than later. But I am glad we've got this episode recorded, because that means I get to send it to you. So, my beautiful friends, I wish you the sweetest of dreams. I wish you goodness and light. I wish you all the blessings in the world, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon. So thank you.